Hey there, I'm Andrew from ListingAI, and I'm going to show you today how to set up your branding in your account. Setting up your branding is a really important step because it allows us to make assets for you, such as social media posts, videos, or even listing descriptions that align well with your tone and your brand and use your assets when we're making materials. So that means having the right voice when we speak about your listings. That means having the right logo, the right headshot, and the right color scheme. So I'll walk you through that right now. So I'm going to, I have an account. It's important to know that you obviously need an account to set up branding. But once you have an account, you can go into the account section here and you can hit branding. Just to point it out though, before we do that, anytime you create a listing, regardless of what asset you select, we're going to ask you to set up your branding right in here. Now you can skip this and go ahead with the process, but when you do this and you skip, it means that the branding that you're using in that asset is isolated to that individual asset, and we're not going to reuse that in the future. So setting your branding is an important step because what it allows you to do is to create a set of branding rules that we can consistently use on your behalf. And that just results in better outcomes. So this is the first step to setting your branding, just to give it a name. Now you might be a transaction coordinator or you might be a team leader and you're making assets for multiple people. So although you have some elements of your branding that may overlap, such as the logo or the colors, the headshot, the name, the phone number, the email, they may be different. So this is your opportunity to name it. You can obviously change the name later if you want, but this allows you to create one name for this branding set that you can use and recognize it going forward. So let's get started. Now, this is just the basic details that we already have about you. Now, in my case, I created my account with my Gmail account. So you can see my first and last name were pulled from there and my email is there, but that's all that we know about Andrew McGrath right now. And that means that the branding that we're going to use is including currently all defaults. So you can see an example of how we would use these defaults on the right hand side. That's going to be here and change as you go through the process, but you can obviously modify this to completely match what you need. So I'm going to leave my first name and last name there. I'm going to change the email though to my email that I would use at my brokerage. I'm just going to use my ListingAI email right now, and then I can put my phone number in. And now, obviously, you'd put your license number in here, your brokerage name, your job title. Now, I'm just going to say I'm a salesperson, your Instagram handle, and any other details you want to provide, such as a website URL or a Facebook page or a bio. It's worth noting that at the moment, and this may change in the future if you're watching this video down the road, we have two types of bios. The reason for that is we have an asset that's referred to as a market report, which is a lead generation tool. And that has a rather restrictive amount of space for bio because it's mostly about the status of the market in your area. So we have a dedicated market report field for your bio, and we have one for everything else. And so I'm just going to make it really simple in my case and say, I love selling real estate. You could put something in there that talks about, you know, I've been doing this for 25 years and blah, 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 blah. But the key thing here is just having something that describes yourself. Now, I would not go overboard. I think this is definitely a scenario where less is more, and I would encourage you to keep it simple. So that's my basic details, and you can see that helps me start to build this out. I can save it there if I want. But I'm going to stay here. I'm going to keep going. So that's my personal information. Now there are a bunch of tabs here across the top. Let's go through them. So the next one is colors and fonts. So you can put your brand color in here. Now this is just a standard slate gray that we've got that works well in a lot of our assets. So if you don't have a branding color in mind, you can start here. It's important to pick colors that are complementary though. You know, you don't want to have white text on a white background, or maybe like purple and red are going to look really outlandish. But this is an opportunity for you to adjust the colors, and there's a whole interface here for selecting these colors that you can play with. I'm going to leave mine as kind of a dark slate-ish gray, but I'm going to change it slightly. We support a wide array of fonts here. Now these are described as web-safe fonts, and that's important because one of the assets we generate for you are landing pages. So you want to make sure that the font that's being used is one that will work on computers that your websites are being viewed on. So I'm going to pick Poppins is a nice font, so I'm going to go with that. Main text. Now this is used on main areas of your page. This would be like on the body of a page. I'm just going to keep mine as black. The heading colors. Now you can go changing these if you want. I'm going to make mine slightly bluer. And then these colors below are all for, there's a little description that describes how each of these are used. And I want to make it clear, you don't need to change all these. I'm just changing these as a demonstration of what effect they have. But this will change the color of the text that shows up in the body whenever we place your text on this dark branded background. And this would be in the case of like the footer of a social post, the footer of a website, or something like that. I'm going to keep mine as white. And then the link text, this is text that is used for links. This is a sample link here. So I'm going to keep mine as kind of a slightly darker blue than my regular blue. Headings on the brand color, again, that's your name and maybe your brokerage name. Let's pick something that is in the blue realm as well, because that's what we're doing. Text on images. Now, I don't think we have an example of that showing up here. We don't. But basically, if there was an instance where there is text overlaying an image, this is the color we'd use. So it's important to consider that you need a color here that is going to show up well on photography. And typically those are bright colors. You wouldn't want to pick like a black, because a lot of colors that are in real estate photos are things like natural woods or brick or roofing. And when you post those pictures, black text doesn't look great over the top. White tends to look really good, which is why it's at default. Border colors, very similar. This is used in instances where a page has a border over something that might be like text-like. Again, white is a great default there. You'll be able to understand this a little bit better when you actually get into making some assets though. So these are not set in stone. You can come back and change these, but that's the use there. And then image overlay tint. So a lot of the time, in order to make text on images show up better, what we'll do is we'll place a tint over your images. So if this is a social post, for example, we'll tint the image with this color, and then we'll use that as a way to make sure the text that we overlay on top of that pops. So black is a great tint color. You could definitely pick a red or something, but black is a great tint color because it looks crisp and clean, and it doesn't alter the image too much. We're going to change the opacity when we do this, but that's where it is. I'm going to quickly upload a headshot. I'll upload my headshot. Now when you do this, you can adjust the crop and zoom, and I'm going to make sure my dog Elvis is in there, so we're going to stick together. And you can upload a basic logo. I'm just going to upload a logo here. Now again, you can adjust the crop and zoom, and I encourage you to. Now see how mine by default has this like white spot on the top and bottom because this image isn't a perfect square. I can address that by zooming it in, and then now it's going to crop it to look really nice as a perfect square. But if I don't do that and I go back to where it was, let's say I go back to something like, I'll do this, and I hit save. Actually, I'm going to hit transparent first. What this will do is, this will mean that whenever we render it, we won't put a color in this little borderline here that's going to get created. Now the benefit to that is, if we put this on your website, it's going to show up pretty nice. So I'll show you an example of what that actually looks like. If I hit save here, okay, see how that looks? So that's using my background with a transparent tint. If I take the transparency off, which I can do by clicking this button, you're going to get a white border around it. Now again, we can play with this border. We can do all sorts of things. This border affects both the ring around your photo and the ring around your logo. Now, for that reason, a lot of people do pick white, because for a lot of logos this works really well. But a lot of people also pick transparent. So if you have an image that needs to be cropped, it's important to remember when you actually update your logo, you may want to just upload it like this. And then it'll come out like that no matter what. If you put the transparency on or off, it's just going to have a consistent border around it. But I like to have a 1x1 square, so zooming in and cropping makes a lot of sense. To that extent, I'm also going to change my headshot to zoom in just a touch. I'm going to save that. That's a bit better. Perfect. So now I can move. These are, again, just your general branding settings. So these are very simple, basic branding settings and how to use your details. And this area of our application will evolve. This isn't how it will be forever, but the intention of this video is just to walk you through, why are you doing this? Now, these are sections that are specific to assets. So website, this is specific to your landing pages for your listings. And this just says which items should show up on your landing page. Different jurisdictions do have different requirements here around what you need to actually say on your landing pages if you're making landing pages for listings as part of advertising. And you may need to have your license number show up. You may need to show an email. You may need to put your social contacts on there. Whatever your requirements are, this is just your opportunity to set those defaults up and put them on your website. So I'm going to just leave my defaults like this and move on to the next one. Same with social posts. So this is the background opacity. I wouldn't stress too much about changing this from the default. Again, this changes the tint color that goes over a photo that we upload. 60% is a really good setting. I would leave it there. But if you do find it's too dark or too light, you can come back to this after you've made a post and regenerate it. And again, same requirements for what assets about your brand you want to show up on those posts. So we'll talk more about that, and we'll talk about how to edit and change these. But just so you know, this is where they are. The more complex one is videos. If you've made a video with us, you're going to notice that the first time you go through it, there's a lot of configuration options that you can play with. I encourage people to go through and make a video, create a branding set, go through, make a video, whatever you want to do. You can just make a video. Don't stress about it too much the first time around. But once you're familiar with what the options are and what the settings are, this page will make a whole bunch more sense. So don't obsess about changing this. You're going to have a lot of time to come back and play with this. Now, I'll talk to you quickly about what these options actually give you though. So default, scene defaults. One of the things that happen in videos is you transition from one scene to another. And when you transition, what is the duration of that transition? We set it as one for 1 second as a default. Actually, sorry, we set it as 0.4 seconds as a default. I have my account set to 1. You can change this around. You probably don't want to go up to 2. 0.1 is probably very fast. So honestly, between the 1 to 1.5 second range is probably pretty good for you. You can leave it there for now and experiment with it later. You'll get one. You'll understand a lot better when you create your first video. Same thing with the default transition style. There's a bunch of different ways you can transition from one image to another, and this is just setting your default. You can in the video change it so it's different for every single scene, but let's just pick a default. So crossfade is our standard default. You can change this to a variety of these options. Again, you'll understand these when you've created your first video, so don't stress about changing it now. Caption settings are another great example of something you can play with when you're making a video. This just controls whether your captions are on or off by default. If you like captions, you may want to leave this on. If you find captions are not something you want to have on your videos, you can just turn this option off. Now, this is allowing you to change the style of the captions. At the moment, we have 5 standard styles with lower third bar, the broadcast bar. It's kind of a dark bar that appears across the bottom of your videos as the default. Again, I like these settings. Some people, depending on the mode that they're sharing their videos, may not like this. The dark box one goes from the very bottom of the picture to slightly up, which is good if you're doing, say, for example, TikTok, and you're relying on the TikTok social bar that shows up at the bottom. You may want to pick one that moves the text up a little bit. But these are all options that, again, you can play with later. And if you're making a video and you're not happy, you can regenerate it. It doesn't cost anything. It's completely free. So these are just things you can play with. Opening and end scene is how your branding is going to be presented on a video. So the end scene opacity and the opening scene opacity, again, just like on social posts, I wouldn't worry about changing these right now. 60% is a really good setting. But if you find that it's too light or too dark, you can play with it. The default opening template, now there's a few standard opening templates, one called highlight, one called overlay, and one where there's nothing. You can switch between those. And you can choose whether you want it to be, I think if it's, do you want it to be visible throughout the whole image or the whole series of scenes or not. This setting currently only affects the highlight setting. So if you have this on and you're selected overlay, it won't do anything. And you'll understand that again when you go through videos, but this is just setting your defaults. Same with the opening scene. What details by default do you want to show up on that opening scene when you're introducing your listing? So headline, address, summary, price, there are standards. And then the next one is what end scene do you want? Same settings for the end scene. There actually is one missing from this list, what we need to add in, which is the equal weighting one. But that'll get in there probably by the time people are watching this video, so you don't need to worry. But again, at the end scene, what details do you need to have in your video? Some jurisdictions may require a license number. They may require your brokerage name to show up. Some may not want that. Some MLSs require there's no agent branding, in which case you'll just want it to fade out by default. So you've got the option to settle these settings, and what that means is next time you make a video, you won't have to go and fiddle with the settings as much because it's set for every video by default the same. And consistency is kind of key to having a professional brand. So I encourage you, go through, make a video, experience what it's like, decide what you like, maybe take some notes along the way, And at the end, come back in here and update your branding so that next time you make a video, the settings are there by default. The final option for branding is your writing preferences. This is a really powerful section because what it will do is change the way we write on your behalf. So if you're writing a listing description, this will define which model and the way we actually structure sentences for you. Now the models are based on user ratings. These are actually just custom versions of the models you're probably the most familiar with out there. They range from Anthropic models to OpenAI models to Google Gemini models, and we custom train them based on historical real estate listings. And then these reviews you see, these review levels, the ratings are based on user feedback. So Avery is currently the highest rated one. I'm going to go with that then. Tone and complexity, and sorry, I should say, we will be changing and adding these over time. This is just the current series of ratings. You know, you can imagine a new model comes out, we introduce it to the list. Initially, it'll have no ratings. That'll evolve. Tone and complexity allows you to set from 4 predefined levels that we have. The way I encourage people to think about these is standard is kind of just what, frankly, we recommend. It's a relatively balanced writing style that uses moderate complexity words, but talks about a property in a way that is going to be acceptable in the vast array of jurisdictions that people operate in. So I encourage people to do this. But if you're maybe dealing with a market that is less formal or has less rules, maybe the relaxed tone is going to be ideal for you. This is common in the case of like Airbnb listings or VRBO listings, for example. Formal might be something that you maybe have, kind of an old school buyer, old school seller. You want to use a tone that, talks to the way they want their property to be spoken about. And they're similar with luxury. Luxury is designed to use slightly more complex wording, more advanced language, and describe the property in a slightly more distinguished way. But of course, if you don't like our standards, you can customize it. And when you go to customize it, there's a lot of different things you can do here. So you can change the tone to a casual, professional, or creative tone. So these are kind of on the bar towards more complex ways of describing properties. Casual will be simple and straight to the point. Professional will be more rigid. Creative will be a lot more flowery. So we often find people do prefer the creative, which is why it's the default in here, but you can play with this. You can change the complexity of the words. Do you want simple words, intermediate words, or more advanced words? Again, this is mostly just think about your market and who they are and who is the target buyer, and also consider your seller and make sure you pick a complexity that you think they're going to accept. And then finally, probably the most powerful thing of the entire part of the platform here, and this is where your brand and your voice comes in, is setting writing instructions. So writing instructions allow you to basically describe to the AI how you want your descriptions written. These are simple rules. Don't put really long descriptions of what you want in here. But you might say, for example, something like, I never want the backyard mentioned. I don't know, why would you want that? But you could say that. I never want the price mentioned. Could be a very reasonable rule because you're saying the price is already on the page, why are we talking about it in the description? But you could say, pay particular attention to nearby services. So if you're in a particularly urban environment, people probably live there because they appreciate the services in the area. So you're going to talk about the neighborhood, although that may be a word you cannot say depending on your MLS, but you may want to still speak about the features of the area. So you can put your writing instructions in here, describe it however you want. I would always want the backyard talked about, so I'm taking that one off. But you can put really anything in here that matches the way you want to speak. And to give you a little more control over that, the custom dictionary rules is a particularly important area. So you may say, for example, I never want anyone to say master bedroom. Now you can ask AI to substitute this for you, or you can just define what your preference is. You could say primary bedroom, and you add that rule. Now, why is this important? This is important because if we think about how AI works, it's trained off a lot of historical data. A lot of historical data will say master bedroom, and that's not how we typically want to describe bedrooms anymore. We may want to say owner suite or primary bedroom. And this will allow you to explicitly tell the AI exactly what you want out of it. Now, this is typically a default rule that we have. I didn't put in this account, but you can put in whatever rules you want. And, there are more practical examples, like, say, for example, you're in Florida. Well, it's less common to say porch in Florida. You may say lanai. So you're going to want to come up with custom dictionary words that suit wherever you live. You don't need to put a whole lot of effort into this. My recommendation is start with the standards. Don't customize anything to begin with. Just go with the standard rules. You'll probably be okay with it. But there may be things that are consistently happening that are bothering you. And when it does, come in here, hit custom, go to the writing rules or the custom dictionary rules, and tell the AI what you do and don't want. You may have an example of don't say this, or do say this, or make sure you mention this, or never mention this. And it will take that on board when writing your next description, and you'll get a better result. So this sort of fine tuning, I think, is one of the real differentiators between using ListingAI for writing listing descriptions or social media content and just going to ChatGPT and every single time having to remember how to prompt it. So I really encourage people to set up their writing preferences once they understand what they do and don't like. So I've saved this. This is great. All these settings are saved. Now anytime I make an asset, it's going to use these settings. So I hope that's helpful. And if there are any questions, I encourage you to reach out to us. You can contact us using the chat in your application by clicking the online button and starting a conversation. That'll go through to one of us. Alternatively, you can give us a call. Our phone number is on the website. Sometimes we are busy helping other people, so you can request a call back, or alternatively just try again. If you leave us a voicemail, we'll always call you back. Finally, you can obviously send us an email to hello@listingai, or you can email me directly. I'm andrew@listingai.co, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for using ListingAI, and have a great day.